Voting Theory Class 10 Video 1. In this video we're going to talk about some more fairness principles. So let's go on to the definition of the first one. The first one says, a voting system is weak Pareto, or it satisfies the weak Pareto fairness principle if whenever every voter prefers A to B, then the social ranking ranks A higher than B. Okay? I'm just using A and B as variables here, right? The property, the fairness principle, doesn't actually have anything to do with the letters A and B. It's just saying if every single voter prefers one alternative to another alternative, then the voting system should rank the preferred alternative higher than the unpreferred alternative. Okay? That's what weak Pareto means. And again, it's a somewhat natural thing to ask for, right? I mean, imagine a voting system where this is not true. It means there could be an election where literally everyone thinks this one candidate is worse than another candidate, and yet the bad candidate still does better than the preferred candidate. Like, that would make absolutely no one happy. So asking for weak Pareto is a perfectly natural thing to do. But surprisingly, not every voting system is weak Pareto. In particular, let's look at this voting system right here. Let's look at the agenda voting system. So here's a really simple voting profile. There's only 3 voters, and here's the agenda. Okay? So in the first head-to-head, D versus C, who would win? Well, C would get 1 point, and D would get 1 plus 1 is 2. So that means that D would win. B automatically goes through. Okay? Now in D versus B, who would win? Well, B would get 2 points, and D would just get 1. So B goes through. A automatically goes through. And finally, in B versus A would get 1 plus another 1. A would get 2, and B would get 1. So A would win. So the social ranking would be something like this. Okay? But if you notice, everyone prefers C to A. Literally everyone prefers C to A. But A is better than C in the social ranking. Okay, so even though everyone thinks A is worse than C, somehow A is higher up than C in the final social ranking. Okay, and this means that the agenda is not weak Pareto. It doesn't satisfy the weak Pareto fairness principle. Okay, let's look at another fairness principle quickly. So this one is a pretty straightforward one. It says a voting system is strategy proof if it's immune to tactical voting. And what I mean by that is if it's impossible to tactical vote. So if no voter can ever benefit from insincerely voting, a voting system is strategy proof if it's immune to tactical voting. And again, from like a political science point of view, it would be nice if your voting system was strategy proof, because it would be nice if all of your electorate could just go to the polls and vote honestly, okay? Instead of having to worry about some sort of strategy, instead of having to worry about compromise or pushover or burying or any of these confusing strategies. Because the trouble is, if a voting system is too susceptible to strategic voting, to tactical voting, it turns into like a game theory problem where they're not being honest in the polls. They're trying to maximize their best outcome as opposed to vote for their favorite. Okay. Well, the sad news is none of the voting systems we've spoke about so far are strategy proof. Except except for one, except for the dictatorship. Okay, so the dictatorship is actually strategy proof. I mean, there's a lot of problems with dictatorship, and it's commonly accepted to not be a very fair way of a voting system, but it is actually strategy proof. If you think about it, there is absolutely no strategy voters can use to tactically vote in a dictatorship. So a dictatorship is strategy proof. But all of the other ones that we've spoke about, they are not strategy proof. I mean, plurality is susceptible to compromise, instant runoff, 2-round runoff, Baldwin, these are all susceptible to pushover. Agenda is susceptible to pushover, and the border is susceptible to burying, among other things. Okay, but the dictatorship is strategy proof. So that's the end of this video.